Hello, all right. We are making a Mech and a Mech. Um, this is just something I wanted to do for a while, take a break from the other projects I was working on. I got several going on at one time, and I had a hankering to build another Mech. It's been a while since I did such a thing, and I'm not really using any references. I'm pulling all this, for the most part, from memory. Um, I used to really love that old Mech. It was the Thunderbolt in BattleTech and Ironfoot in Dogram was the anime. Great anime if you ever get to see it about a revolution or a civil war that takes place and the battles that go on and how basically the politicians destroy everything that the freedom fighters worked for. So very realistic, I guess, in that regard. The mech was off-centered with the cockpit. The cockpit was on the right-hand side, so it was asymmetrical. I'm kind of following along those lines and going with that sort of airplane cockpit, or it's a very atypical cockpit for a Mac where might have eyes or a head, your typical head where you're looking out where the eyes would be. Um, and the ankles and the calves, they had this cuff around the foot, especially with the Dugron Mechs, and that roll bar protector over the ankle. And I'm going to mix that style a little bit with some of the more Western mech cues of the hard edges and sharp corners, but going along with the overall form or the anthropomorphic morphology, I guess, of the anime style mech, if that's the right terminology. Maybe not. The humanoid shape is going to lean towards that Thunderbolt here as you see this unfold. I didn't use that asymmetrical cockpit. I put it in the middle, but it kind of, like I said, follows that same flow of the Thunderbolt. I'm just going to pile up detail here. Not really, wasn't really sure where I was going with this at the time. It'll end up being a 3D print, and this is a little design element, this cross pattern or this X pattern. I'm not sure what purpose it would serve. You see it a lot in the Western style animation. Um, I'm sorry, Western style Max animation. Yeah, maybe it would strengthen metal, kind of like a crease or a fold in sheet metal to give it rigidity. And then the missile chute or the missile launchers. I remember the old BattleTech drawings. They would just have holes in the where the launchers would be. And I guess it makes sense. It always struck me as just kind of being goofy design. I'd want like little hatches or lids to cover up the launching ports. But I spent a little way too much time doing this stupid little all these holes. I couldn't get them to scale uniformly properly, and I did not want to scale them individually. That would just been taking out 15 minutes longer than I felt like dealing with. All right, and add that sort of triangle window design, which strikes me as being a little more Western as opposed to that smooth angled, uniform, curved anime style. There we go. I'm gonna throw in a Warhammer look to it too with the rifle, with the cannon arms. So I'll do a couple different variations for this little model, and we'll see how it looks on the printer. Wasn't quite sure what I was going for. Like I said, I was just messing around. Wanted to play a little bit and riff on some ideas. Right. Let's see. See, I'm stealing from a lot of the anime style with that hip, but keeping the angular corners. Um, there we go. A little of that destroid hip look. The one thing I don't have that I'm going to have to make here in a little bit is some good hands, because we'll do a version of this, a variant, as they would say in Battletech, of this baby with some fists or some hands to hold the gun as well. And then we'll even, as we get along further on down the line, add one of those forearm cannons like the Thunderbolt had, or the original Thunderbolt is now an unseen mech. And I'll show those actually. Maybe I get those and we can look at them as we go through here. Just throwing some details, a machine gun, and an AC-20 and some dopey things sticking out on the top and the lid, and some doodads here. Try to straighten those lines up so I can just get a nice smooth extract or extrusion with some square boxes. The geometry isn't too tangled up. Even though I'm not going to do too much with this, it does try to keep it clean. All right, it's just some more nonsense. We'll do one of those cross X patterns here. Those always look cool. In Battletech, I think the unseen mechs had to have their own redo, so they all got 2Cs, they call them. The Warhammer 2C, the Phoenix Hawk 2C, the Jenner 2C. I think that might have been their attempt to get around the copyright suit. I don't know if was it FOSSA was being sued by Harmony Gold for these designs, or for the ability or the rights, or they shouldn't be using these designs. So there was some controversy around that, and they tried to redesign it, the FOSSA folks. Then I think they even got rid of the 2Cs, but don't quote me on that one. But they hit them. They came back for the game, the video game, the Battletech Harebrained Schemes game. And there are some hands. We'll make a trigger finger one for a gun, and we got a fist. And we just got like an open hand, relaxed hand. We'll throw some detail on this cannon. And then clean up this goofy geometry. This is terrible. I don't know what happened here. Why is that crooked? All right, there we go. So this is a two-handed one. I got a little antsy and prepared to print. We'll get to that at the end of the video, or towards the end of the video. Wanted to see what it was going to look like in the resin. All right, now back to work. Here we go, adding that arm cannon, that forearm cannon. Cleaning up, grabbing one of those forearm cylinders I already made and just modifying it to support that doohickey. Simple, nothing fancy. Faking up some circles, popping them out. Then while I'm at this here, making my fake hammer and my fake thunderbolt, faker bolt, I actually redid some mechs, or built some mechs that were the Robotech Macross destroids. This Spartan, I think was this the Spartan? Or the Phalanx in Macross and the Spartan in Robotech. All right, we'll just throw these guys together. They came out of the print and pretty good. And we got all kinds of extra parts, arms, and you can see the failed prints. I was having a damnedest time getting quality prints out of the printer. I am not sure why. The fast resin for the Anycubic Photon S5, it just wasn't curing all the way through. It wasn't solidifying throughout the body of the mech, and I was getting this gushy, slurry, half solidified resin. I ended up having quite a bit of failures before I finally decided to try and increase the exposure time to almost the full length of the standard resin as opposed to the fast cure resin. So it went from 17-minute print to a 4-hour print. Whatever, I don't care. I just wanted to see this thing come out halfway reasonable and get a cool print. And that is essentially the finished version. So with the fists, the cannon arm, the missile launchers, and the forearm gun. Ta-da! And after this, we'll try the Spartan, see how that looks. So hang on while we look at that. All right, this is the Spartan model that I created originally in 3D Studio Max. I still have it in 3D Studio Max, and this model is very old. I probably haven't looked at it since maybe 2003 or so. I used a modeling technique called spline modeling with the surface modifier. So you wouldn't actually use any geometry to create that, but it was created by a bunch of curves or Bezier curves that would connect to create those surfaces. And I found it to be very useful at the time when creating the anime style mechs with the endlessly curved surfaces. And I wasn't that good at box modeling at the time, or 3D Studio Max, really very much learning as I went. And I was just kind of poking around at it to see where I left off and what was functioning. I know I made those doors. I had an animatable version, but without further ado, I just kind of did some minor preparation on the model to get it ready for a print and sent it off to the resin printer. And I had a little bit of success right off the bat. The detail turned out pretty good. The overall quality of it was not too bad. Didn't really have to fight with it too much. I made some minor modifications to the ankle. I added like a object in there to cover up the teeny tiny working parts that made up that ankle that I had built in the original 3DS model for animation. Didn't need that anymore, so just kind of reinforced it with a sphere, just poking out down there that attached all the heel and the toe and whatnot. And I'm just gonna slap this together. I did have some problem with the doors, the missile bay doors, only in so far as the little hinge for it is super duper fragile. It would break if you breathed on it too hard. So you gotta just kind of make sure you get that glued in place before you manage to snap it, or I managed to carelessly bonk it and ruin it. I was trying to make it roughly the same size that I remember the lead figure was that you could get. I think Raul Parth sold the original Robotech lead figures. I remember having them from the hobby shop. I had the Spartan, I had this lead figure, long since lost. Just very sad about that. And yeah, that's it. And the glue is still a little gooey. And this is the second one. I'll try to get those doors on here. This one was a little smaller. A slightly bit smaller. There you go. So there's what the door, and that's what the final product looked like. Pretty neat. Turned out fairly well, moving that old model to 3D print. And there is the final of that fake Warhammer, fake Thunderbolt that I came up with. All right, I guess that covers it, guys. If you stuck around this long, thanks for enduring that, and I appreciate it. We'll do this again. See you later.